Aloha, namaste. This is Alexis Cox with Radha Home Yoga, and I'm here to bring you your new moon forecast. We have the new moon coming up this Tuesday, and it's going to be 7:05 a.m. Pacific Standard Time that the exact degrees of the sun and the moon will come together. Of course, the dark night will be Monday night. So we have this new moon in sidereal Scorpio. And it's really important to understand that the sidereal zodiac is tied to the fixed stars. So it's something that has been able to stand the test of time. The equinox has progressed over thousands of years, and the Western system, which relies on the tropical zodiac, which is tied to the equinoxes, is is basically less accurate because it's no longer aligned with what actually is in the sky. So when they say, the sun is now in Sagittarius, like it's literally not in the constellation of Sagittarius. So it's important to understand, just because so many people do still follow Western astrology and specifically are really tied to sun sign astrology as opposed to a more moon-based understanding of what's going on. So this system, this Vedic system, thousands and thousands of years old, one of the earliest systems, and one in which the Western system was actually based on, but it had stronger lineage and a more accurate assessment of what was going to be forever, not just for that one time at that point in time. Because of course, thousands of years ago, 2,000 years ago, the sky was such that the Western system and the Vedic system aligned, and it was no problem. So I just like to put that up front, because a lot of people do practice in the Vedic sciences, they're yoga teachers and things like this, but they still sort of subscribe to that sun sign Western astrology. So I just like to educate people whenever I can. So this new moon in sidereal Scorpio is happening in a star that's called Anuradha. And Anuradha is after Radha. If you know anything about the mythology or the deities of India, especially even if you've just kind of heard of the Hare Krishnas or something, the goddess Radha is the devotional being. Krishna is considered to be the beloved. He's a avatar or an incarnation of Vishnu, the preserving presence of the universe. And he comes down to earth in this sort of blue, handsome form, and he lures all the ladies, all the gopis. And the one gopi that has his attention the most is Radha. And she starts off in this sort of mortal way where she's just another gopi who he loves the most and who, shows maybe the most interest in him. But over time, she evolves into being his other half and to being supernatural herself. And there's a beautiful story, a lovely story, where Krishna has already left her. He's already left his home in Vrindavan, and he's gone to Dwarka, which is the capital, where he's, to be the king. And he's fulfilling his duties. He has a bevy of queens and all the different things that come with his kingly responsibilities, but he's never forgotten Radha. And in the meantime, he falls ill. And the doctor that sees him, which of course there's also a bevy of doctors, they can't figure out what's wrong with him. They can't figure out what's wrong with him. They can't figure out what's wrong with him. And then the final doctor that comes in to see him is said to be Narada. And he comes in and he says, oh yes, Krishna is very ill. He leaves the room and comes out and tells all the queens and all the court and everyone in Dwarka, this man is very ill, and if he's going to get better, somebody is going to have to stoop to the ground and pick up dust on their finger and place it on his forehead. Of course, this is extremely offensive in the Indian culture, and you can't put dust on the ground onto somebody higher than you's head. It's it's putting like your feet on their head, which is not respectful at all. You don't point your feet towards a deity or towards your guru, towards your teacher, towards a king, towards your parents. You show respect. So you bow your head down to their feet, perhaps, but you would never take dirt off the ground and put on their head. So everybody says, no, I can't do this. His wives, everybody, I cannot do this. This will set back my karma. This will set back my karmic wheel. All the good things I've been doing to gain, this place in life, this positioning. will go to waste. And so no, everyone refuses. They all refuse. So they send to his town in Vrindavan and see if anybody will there step forward. And his family, nobody is willing to set back their karma this way. Nobody is willing to do this offensive act that the doctor is asking, who's actually Narada. And finally, Radha hears the news. She's out milking the cows. She's got her, person she's been betrothed to. She's living her life that she was given, the life she fell into, just as Krishna is living his. He has to be Lord, he has to be king, she has to be this milkmaid. She hears that he's ill and she immediately drops everything, gets on a train and goes to Dwarka. Maybe there's no train, maybe it's a horse and buggy or something. So she gets there and she gets to the castle and she walks in. She's, oh my lord, I see that you're so sick. And she's totally distraught. And Narada comes in, he says, my dear Radha, the only thing that will heal this man, the only thing that will heal your beloved is to take a dollop of dust off the ground and place it on his forehead. Can you do this? And without any thought, without any question, without anything at all, just hearing this is what he needs to be okay, she stoops down and does it and places it on his head. In that instant, Krishna is healed. And in that instant, Radha becomes immortal and is officially like his other half and the female part of his entity. And, there are many variations of this story, and of course every story. That's how the tradition of oral storytelling takes place, is that it shifts with time. But this understanding of it, that her divinity came, as opposed to her losing all that karma that everyone was worried about, being back on the karmic wheel and setting back in time because they've done something offensive. Her devotion was so deep, she didn't think about that at all. It did not happen for her like that. And it immediately transcended all of those mortal fears, and she became immortal. And this is really what the message of Anuradha is. It's that message of devotion and faith. So many people in the yoga culture, in the West especially, but even in the East, are fixated on asana and on the body and on even meditation, on these austerities that they do time and time and time again. And that's wonderful. You do need to practice. You need to get on your mat. You need to do the physical poses so that your body can even have a comfortable seat in order to meditate. You need to transcend time and space and take quiet for yourself. And chanting and all of these practices are so amazing. But at the end of the day, if you're just doing practices and you never are able to infuse that love into it, and you're never able to infuse that devotion into it, which transcends the body and transcends the practice, then you're missing the point. The point is not to attain something by doing X, Y, and Z and getting somewhere. The point is to have so much love in your heart that you're showing up daily, of course, to do your practice, but if anything is more important, that would overcome that. As a mother myself, and all the mothers that I see in the world, I honor so much the work of the mother, and have my son just turned 3, so I'm new to understanding it, but it's really opened my eyes to that devotion mothers have. So often mothers can't go to the gym or to their yoga class. They can't get up and do all these different practices every day, especially when they have babies, because their baby is needing them, and that they have to make that choice of devotion to their child, of devotion to this other being that they've created and brought into earth, over daily practices that they think will get them somewhere. You see classes and programs and all kinds of things where people want to become enlightened or get closer to spirit or whatever it is they're trying to achieve. And that's wonderful. It's a wonderful way to spend your time and your resources, but ultimately it pales in comparison to serving another being. If you have a sick relative, or your grandparents are, ill, or you have a child, or somebody who's in need and needs help, anything that you do to help another, to serve another, is going to far surpass a daily practice that you might do, because ultimately a daily practice has a selfish involved in it, especially when you first start practicing. Now, if you can start your daily practice, well before you say have a child or are caring for someone, as I was fortunate enough to do, then it becomes easier to fall back into it because you always do it. And that's the idea of the practice, is that you do it every day, and therefore it's always there for you. And of course, it helps you keep your head calm when the trials and tribulations come up. It helps you take care of yourself so you're even available for someone else. So I'm in no way, knocking having a daily practice. I'm just saying that the idea in the West that is it, and that is the end game, and that then you're a yogi or you've achieved something is missing it, is missing the point. The devotion, the love, the bhakti, and the karma yoga, the yoga of selfless service and action that heals and helps others without personal reward, without gains in mind. That is the true yogi. That is the truth of yoga. And that is the truth of the saints and the wise beings around the globe, be it from India or anywhere. That is the heart of our world and the heartbeat of cultures since the beginning of time, that we've cared for each other and we've taken care of each other. And we're in a time now of high selfishness, and it's spreading, and people are so involved with themselves that they would, run someone over to get to their yoga class, on time, and take the parking spot from someone else and jump out so they can get to their class on time, and tap their foot if things aren't going their way. So at some point you have to take that yoga off the mat and into your life and into the world. And Radha is the deity that most embodies this devotion beyond herself and this selflessness that we need. And right now the moon is debilitated. It's in Scorpio, where things are up and down and all around, and our emotions are high and then they're low, and we feel attached to something and then we want to let it go. It's this roller coaster ride, and that's why the moon is debilitated there. Specifically, the moon's debilitated in the earliest part of Scorpio, in the nakshatra Vishaka, which is before Anuradha. So when we get to the Anuradha part during this new moon, we are able to offer it up, like, okay, we're on this roller coaster ride. Okay, we're always going to feel up or down or this or that if we're focusing on what's outside of us. But when we're able to focus ourselves on our heart and on our heart space and on our devotional space and on what we love and what we hold dear to ourselves, and more importantly, on serving others and whatever we are needed for in this world, whatever service we've been called to, be it for a sick relative, or be it for someone you don't even know at all, or be it for, an organization or whatever cause it is that you are called to. This is the highest thing we can do, and it will help us transcend that emotional roller coaster that we ride the rest of the time. So that's really the heart of this new moon, and that's why I call it faith over fear, because Scorpio can be where we're facing these big fears and we feel all this fear that's sometimes very real, sometimes things that really we need to be afraid of, like death, and then also sometimes the really imagined fears. We think somebody's doing this or that, and we try to control a situation or control a person in order to keep ourselves from experiencing what we don't want to experience, which is, disappointment and loss. And it's interesting because this is a time of loss. This is a time of the year that is loss. We're waning, to this new moon, but we're waning to the darkest time of the year as well. And it's right around the corner, and it's right around Christmas. But in the Western culture, and of course, again, permeated throughout the world at this point, it's a time of buying stuff and gathering stuff and getting presents for everybody. And that's how you show everybody you love them, by buying stuff for them. Maybe even going in debt in order to buy everybody stuff, and to celebrate and eat a lot of food, take in a lot. And of course, the energy of waning is one of loss, letting go, and death, ultimately a death within us. So we are needing to shed, and we are, whether we realize it or not. And oftentimes we fill those voids with all the Christmas cookies that are at the office, or whatever it is that shows up, the gifts that we can buy for people. And it makes us feel good to give things to people, for sure it does, but we also need to recognize the opposition of that energy when we're gathering, taking in more, buying stuff, eating, as opposed to letting go and releasing. So there's some really good things you can do to sort of help balance this energy if you live in the regular world and you do still have office parties and people you need to buy gifts for and events that are going to have a lot of food and all this kind of stuff. You can try to sort of do these gradual fastings, which is that you don't want to like eat a bunch of food on Thanksgiving Day and then like the next day starve yourself, because it's really bad for your body. You can actually go into shock and even really seriously hurt yourself. So you need to gradually reduce what you're eating coming up to and leading from an event where there's going to be a lot of food. So you can do this sort of, leading up to and waning out of fasting, and maybe take a couple days where you do just a green juice or something like that to let your body replenish its workings, basically, because your colon and all your system are in overdrive when they're having to process all this extra food. Other things you can do to really help your digestive process and things like that are to have some lemon water, maybe warm lemon water, since the weather's getting a little cooler now. Maybe very cold if you, I live in Southern California, but if you live somewhere else, it might already be quite cold. Some lemon water first thing in the morning gets your digestion going. Doing some Kalabati breathing, some breath of fire first thing in the morning can get your digestive going. Doing some kind of inversion, you could do a headstand or a handstand if that's available to you, or you could, maybe just put your legs up the wall or something like that if that's a little bit more accessible. So doing something that inverts you early in the morning, in that early cold hours, the dark hours, generally speaking, but I guess it depends on what time you get up, but if you can do that before 7 a.m., that's ideal. These are all ways to get your digestion going and get your body moving. There's another breathing called Nauli breathing, which is more difficult for me to demonstrate right now, but it's, if you do have a more advanced practice, you can do that if that's already part of your practice. So these are all things you can do to sort of get your digestion going and allow yourself to process your foods and process yourself. Other things that I'm working with right now involve, if you have children or family members and things like that that you need to get presents for or that expect presents. If your children are young enough and you can work with the idea of not starting a huge epic present fest for Christmas, then do that. Really kind of focus on maybe one gift or some clothes they need and then one thing they really want or something like that. Keeping it minimal, buying things secondhand, used. And one of the biggest things I'm doing right now, because my son's birthday is in November, so he just got a bunch of presents at a party that I didn't get him a bunch of presents, but other people did. And so I'm having him go through his toys and decide what he doesn't need anymore. And I've explained to him that some kids don't have any toys and need some, and also that there's some kids who are younger than him that might want some of his younger toys that he doesn't need anymore. So we're going through and purging out things, and then when he gets one special toy on Christmas, he'll be able to bring that into a cleaner environment where he doesn't have all this stuff and it's just junk, because that's what happens on these holidays, like their birthday or Christmas or something. There's just like next one. They just get into this thing of just opening. And of course we have variations of that as adults where we just, what's the next thing that can give us a hit when you're shopping online or when you're doing something, next. You can do things like White Elephant or Secret Santa or something like that. To reduce the number of gifts you have to buy for adult people, for adult friends, within your family, you can do that. Within your office, you can do that, anything. You can re-gift things, people think that's so tacky, but if there's something that is, not super used and is very, going to be really liked by somebody else, somebody would probably appreciate something really high quality that they like a lot re-gifted to them than something that is cheap plastic throwaway item that you bought new. Just, we have this idea that new is clean, but new is generally toxic, especially when you're talking about plastic. New generally has the highest level of toxicity. In fact, if a new present comes to my child, I always have to off-gas it because I don't buy new plastic toys personally. So we have to put them outside and let them off-gas their toxicity before we even allow them into the house. Whereas used is somebody's toy. You can wash it, you can clean it, it's dirt or another human's hands, to me personally, is cleaner than chemicals and toxicity. But, we live in a society that sort of considers high toxic things like bleach to be cleaner than dirt in the ground. So it's a whole mentality that we're living in, and we have to sort of turn it on its head and think for ourselves and be and make choices that work for you. If you really like bleach, then use it, but know what it is and know what it does. So and know how harmful dirt is. Probably not, unless you're on the Big Island and you have slugs in your dirt. Then you do have to be careful of rat lungworm, and I'm sure there's certain diseases you have to be worried about. But you can always wash dirt with water and soap and things like that. So now I'm getting off track a little bit, but the idea of purging is the big message I wanted to get across, that we can purge and also allow a little space for something new to come in. But if we purge after we've already taken in so much, then we're just overloading ourselves. So the more we can start that purging now, the better, especially because it's really supported by the astrology and also the seasonal shift. As the season wanes to our equinox, to our darkest day of the year, we want to honor that. So the more you can do that now, the more you'll be ready to take in something new after that. So this is, sort of not specific alignment based information, but it's just practices and tools and tips that can help you out in this time, especially as we're waning to this new moon, because it's a meditative time. It's a time to really tune in to what's important. And I think on our mind, body, and spiritual level, one of the most important things you can do is just sort of cleanse yourself so that you can see what you really do need. What are the thoughts you really need? I always say that in my yoga class, like just lose all your thoughts, and any ones that you really needed will come back to you. Lose all the stuff, and then whatever you really need, you can consciously bring back into your life. So cleansing and fasting and stuff like that is great. This particular new moon, we have a couple things that might make relationships kind of challenging. Pardon me. And I think that's also really helpful if we're focusing on purging things that aren't working for us and stuff, so that we're not just filling holes that we feel. Because we might very well have some arguments or disagreements with our loved ones, or our romantic partners, our business partners, our work relationships. We have both Mars and Mercury joined in sidereal Libra. And Libra is the planet of like engagement with others and harmonious relationships and all of those kind of things. And we've had a lot of different planets there, and they've just sort of shifted. Specifically, the sun has just shifted out of that place where we're sort of giving our power away to everyone. So now we're kind of taking our power back. And Mercury went retrograde back into Libra. While Mercury usually does pretty good there because it keeps our communication harmonious and friendly and loving and sweet, with Mars there right on the heels, 10 degrees away, you can see that we might be a little cutting, or feel like somebody else is keeping us from our discipline, or keeping us from our courage, or keeping us from our action, and blame it on them. And we might have nice speech and then cut it short, cut it off, or cause a fight or an argument or something like that. So that's something to be aware of. And then in addition to that, we have Venus, the ruler of Libra and the planet of relationships itself, in sidereal Sagittarius, joined Jupiter. And they're very close degrees. They're 2 degrees apart. So we see that there's this battle going on within us of, do I, enjoy and have pleasure and beauty and relationship in my life, or do I do what's moral and just and important? And this can come up, let's say, if there's somebody who has different beliefs than you, that you might be seeing over Thanksgiving or over the holidays, and you have to decide, is it better to take my moral stance and say what I want to say and stand behind my beliefs, or is it better to keep the peace? And this can also come up, like if you're seeing somebody new, should I go on this date, or should I go to my practice, or with my group of people that I do whatever I do weekly, and I'm able to to be with people who have like-minded beliefs as me and who support my growth spiritually and my expansion of my higher ideals and everything? Or do I go out with this person that I just met and kind of like? Well, right now, because Jupiter's in its own sign and Venus is not, we are more likely to make the choice to go to our group of like-minded individuals, to go to our idealism, to fight for our beliefs. We're more likely to stand on the podium and preach than we are to keep the peace. And that is, of course, also challenging for relationships, because unless you're in a relationship with somebody who agrees with you on everything, and who you have very similar political, spiritual, and social views, you are likely to clash, because it's going to come up. If you hold something dear and near to you, you're not going to be as likely to compromise right now as you were even just a week ago. So this is just something to be aware of, especially as we come upon the holidays, because of course Venus is the relationship planet, so we do have our romantic partners, but we also have our business partners, and any adults that you're engaging with one-to-one. Even your parents start to take on that position when you get older and you're adults. So just being, super aware of those one-to-one conversations, and really what battles are worth fighting, is if you're not going to convince this person of your beliefs, it's not worth having an argument about it. You can still believe what you believe. You don't have to fold on your beliefs to keep the peace, simply because, the world's problems are not going to be solved at your Thanksgiving table. So this is, all stuff that's going to be up for us in the next 2 weeks, and for this new moon on Tuesday. And hopefully this is helpful. If you like this video, you can like it. If you want to share it, you can share it with others. You can comment. And if you want to know where that Jupiter is for you specifically right now, you can get my free report if you sign up for my newsletter. So there's a free report that says where Jupiter is for all 12 signs. And of course, that's your sign and also your loved one's sign. So you can kind of see where that house is that's getting that action. Saturn, the planet of fear and constriction and hard work, is actually in that house too, with K2 still. Those two are still there, and bringing some of that fear and that sort of withdrawal and all those things to that area of your life. But they're not super close to Venus and Jupiter, so it's not as big of an issue right now for our relationship planet Venus, and also for our ideals and stuff. But as the month moves on, Venus will move into conjunction with K2 and we'll really be pulling away from relationships. And then Venus will move into conjunction with Saturn, and we'll start to feel that fear, which sometimes actually bonds us to people. It sometimes makes us commit to people, but it's coming from a fear-based place, not a really aligned, beautiful place. So that's all something to look forward to, if that's one way of putting it. And again, you can get that, what house that is for you, and what Jupiter is doing there specifically, helping you expand and find your higher truth in that house, if you sign up for my email list, and you'll get that report in your inbox. I hope you're doing well and enjoy your new moon and your holiday, and are surrounded by love and devotion and peace. Namaste.